Well, kids, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you with Barstools and Bandtalk. And it's, I guess we've been calling it Curtain Call Corner for lack of any more creative name than that. I have with me Miss Stacey Moore from the band Death by Overkill, Curtain Call artist. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, if I understand it correctly, you're in Seattle, correct?
That's right.
What's Seattle like these days in terms of the music scene?
Um, it is abundant. There are, I mean, as you would expect in Seattle, there's band. You could throw a rock and hit a band, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So a lot of diverse music scenes. Never any lack of anything to go out and see live music any night of the week.
So I reside in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, which is the east coast of Canada, and there's um, a connection to Seattle out here.
Okay.
So in the '90s, when Nirvana and that whole thing was going off, Sub Pop Records, one of their executives came out here, found a couple of bands, and started signing bands out here, and we became the Seattle North. And
Oh.
yeah, so there you go. We get that out of the way. So fantastic. Tell me a little bit about Death by Overkill. I saw some video. Very neat band, funky, groovy. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we don't tie ourselves down to any one genre. I mean, if you're going broad category, we're a rock band,
Yeah.
but we're really playful and we like to play around within a bunch of different genres, and there's nothing that we consider off the table.
I got, and hopefully you're okay with this reference, and it wasn't, I'm not saying totally like this, but I got a little bit of older, no doubt, like when they were kind of a cool, rockish, kind of had a little bit of a tinge of reggae-ish in there, but kind of that edgy sort of vibe. Is that a fair statement?
That is, I wouldn't necessarily pin that to the band in and of itself, but throughout my musical career, it is not uncommon for me to get the Gwen comparison.
Right on. Well, it's not a bad because I mean, I thought that was a great band before they kind of decided
Sure,
top 40 was the way to go, and I mean, good.
I was a fan.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I mean,
yeah,
you can't begrudge them for wanting to make money, and it worked. So,
yeah.
tell me a little bit about. I saw a couple tunes online. How often do you guys play out there? Do you get to play out there?
It kind of depends. We like to cruise around the Pacific Northwest area in general, Eastern Washington, Portland, up in Bellingham. I'd love to get up to Vancouver, BC.
Yeah,
But yeah, we're kind of just making the rounds around here. So as often as we can, but in Seattle proper, we try to kind of limit it to maybe like once a quarter.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean that makes sense because you don't want to work where it's hard enough, I guess, to do something in your hometown,
Yeah.
and to oversaturate is a bad thing. And I haven't played. I'm a musician myself. I haven't played, but I've been to Portland a bunch of times.
Mhm.
There's a whole vibe. My father is actually from the Vancouver, British Columbia area. Just talk about that Pacific Northwest vibe. There's a real vibe to that whole. It's got a different feel than anywhere else in the United States.
I mean, I think that is something that I would be interested to hear someone not from this area to describe.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, I mean, because it's hard when you're in it to
Yeah.
pinpoint what that is, you know? And I know it's wildly different for us in Seattle, even compared to Portland.
Yeah.
It's all very kind of arty, but differently. If I go down to Portland, I love Portland, but I feel like it's really obvious I'm not from there, if that makes sense.
It does because I felt the same way because they can pick up on a Canadian accent pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Portland, the few times that I was there, the music seemed pretty cool. A lot of different, rock, country, different sorts of things.
Yeah.
Um, the summertime, swelteringly hot. I mean, that's my recollection. Seattle just kind of had this chill, laid back. I don't know. We're just going to sit in a coffee shop because it's usually raining, right? And we're
Mhm.
gonna, meet up and network and do some fun stuff. And the music scene was always vibrant. Those were kind of my takeaways. And then you have the forest area on the outskirts that really makes it in the mountainous areas and stuff. It's very cool.
Little secret for you. It does not quite rain as much as people think, and it's actually quite gorgeous and sunny and warm in the summertime.
Vancouver rains, honest to God, I swear it's 80% of the time.
Mhm.
Now it's one of the only places in Canada that doesn't really get a winter in terms of frigid temperatures and
Sure.
snow, but yeah, precipitation, oh plenty. So tell me about what you've been doing in terms of releasing your music and how you guys have been getting it out there. Recording that type of thing.
hmm Everything that we have is available streaming, so you can find us on any of the usual, Spotify, Apple, all the usual platforms. And we put out a new album, our second album, Come At Me Bro, in November. And we kind of deliberated a while about that. Like, do we want to does anyone care about CDs anymore?
Right.
I know in the punk community, they're starting this resurgence of cassette tapes, And so
Yeah.
we kind of deliberated on how we wanted to handle that. And we decided, since none of us had done it before, that we really wanted to press vinyl. So that's what we did.
Well, when you mentioned cassette tape, that's really funny because I found one of my old. It was back when we used to figure out tunes. It was here's your tape and go, and you'd have to rewind it to try to figure out the song. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is I guess what's your scene like there in terms of support of other artists? Because I go to some places, it's amazing. I go to others, it's not so good. Seattle always had this thing where, to me, from the outside looking in, because Halifax, the grunge scene used to be that, you need a drum kit, we'll get you a drum kit. You need
hmm
somebody. It just seemed like it was very helpful and inclusive. Is it the same still
It's
there?
100% that way. I think that um, the Seattle music scene has gotten a bit of a bad rap. I think there was a definite time, a period where it was kind of an oversaturation, and everyone in the audience is a musician. And there was always this joke about like people standing with their arms folded in the audience and
Yeah,
not really engaging. And
yeah,
I like to think that the scene as a whole has really tried to break that stereotype.
yep.
And yes, as far as a performing musician in the area, I have seen nothing but camaraderie, willingness to share gear, willingness to promote each other. Like it's great.
Well, because one of the things that I, remember about that scene from being afar, but I mean, we kind of had a version of it was that there was the attitude that if one goes, we all go, and that, you know, whoever draws the crowd. And I mean, Seattle really in the early 90s is a perfect example of, you know, bands broke and all of a sudden that's where all the record people went.
Yeah.
And, they tried to get everybody and I guess ate them all up and spit them out or whatever. But there's still that vibe there, is there?
I mean, I think it's less of a hungry from a corporate standpoint of
Yeah,
like people flocking here to break the next Seattle band. I don't see that.
yeah,
There's definitely a lot of people who are making a name for themselves out of this town, and a lot of people who are making a big name for themselves in the Pacific Northwest region. But no, I would not say there is that frenzy from, I mean, what is a label? Like
yeah. I mean, they don't
it's
exist
not what
anymore,
it was
really.
in the 90s,
Right.
that's for sure.
Well, and it's funny because I talk about this a lot in the podcast. I mean, what people kind of miss about record labels is really, I mean, you were getting signed to a bank loan, is what it was. They would lend you money. Nobody was familiar with the term recoup at the
Right.
beginning of their career, but they certainly were as they went along. And now, it's almost like you do have the control. Like you might sign with Curtain Call as an example, and they'll support you, but
Yeah.
you have the control to do what you want to do with your music. So I think it's in a weird way, it's a better option, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, unlike, back in the day when people just sort of, jumped at the chance to be signed,
Yeah.
not fully understanding what that meant. I think that anyone who is involved in the industry now understands and has a better understanding of the business side of it, and you have to. And
Yeah.
I think people understand now that you can't just be a band and play music and let other people take control. You have to be in control, and you have to be willing to do a lot of the work on the back end.
I've had people get angry with me because like I do some promotional work as well as play. And when somebody asks for help, the first thing that I always ask is, what are your goals? Right?
hmm
Because if you don't know, I can't help you. But oftentimes what I find is if people don't know their goals, and they usually they don't know what their goals are. I mean, that's what it is, right? So then you give them kind of direction, and they almost get offended because it's like, oh, well, you're basically telling me if I'm not doing this, I'm not going to get anywhere. It's like, well, if you want to make it in this business, if there's such a thing anymore, there's
Right.
certain things you have to do. If you're not willing to do those, it's a hobby for you. It's not a career. It's not a business,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Yeah. And I think, the landscape has changed so drastically that it's all about content creation.
Yeah,
And I think that there's a certain level that you have to be realistic about. What am I willing to devote? How much time do I have to devote to that aspect of it? And, this is where it's a great place to network and reach out and have some label support and have help from people who are willing to take on that aspect of it because it is exhausting and it's not something everybody wants to do all the time. Maybe you have a day job, maybe you just want to focus on making art and making music, making the actual, graphics, whatever your part is, but just constant churn of content. It's not easy.
No, and one of the things that I sometimes find a little comical, and it's because, I mean, if you're looking for help or you want help, it makes sense to go to somebody that's doing something that you need help with, right? And I find oftentimes what happens is people won't ask, right? They'll try to do it themselves and it doesn't work and they get frustrated and they quit or whatever. Um, but the whole people don't understand, like, great, you have 100,000 subscribers. I don't understand why my page isn't growing. And I think, well, you don't really have 100,000 subscribers. You convinced 100,000 people to click subscribe,
Sure.
but they're not engaged, and it's the engaged part that people don't understand, and the um, yeah, it's the engaged part that people don't understand, and the interactions and those types of things. Are you guys paying attention to that as you're building your socials?
Yeah, we try to. And honestly, this is something that we're all very busy, and this is why we have, sought out assistance in this
Yeah,
area because we're busy. And, I would definitely lean on others to help, cross promote or whatever. And then, going back to the music community, we have all kind of banded on to like, doing videos together and promoting and pushing each other's stuff because it helps drive traffic to both
yeah,
bands,
yeah.
whatever. Any kind of thing like that you can do to help ease the burden of just content creation, we try to do.
See, that's just smart business, and I mean, you're taking a flyer because you never know. I mean, you're still going to run into people that are going to be greasy and try to take it for themselves and not somebody else. But I think that there's a little bit of a taken on faith that it will work out. So it's good to hear that you're doing that. And I mean,
Mhm.
curtain call. Part of the reason why I do this, I've had a podcast for 5 years. It was totally by accident. Um, you know, John, Brian, Gigi, they're great people. I like to help support their bands. Artists that I work with is going to be going with them. Um, what's your impression been a curtain call? I always like to ask this question of people.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're great people. They want to help. They seem like they want to be involved. They seem like they have the artist's best interest at heart, and that's really all you can ask for.
Well, especially in this business that I was talking to somebody the other day. It was about the Foo Fighters getting rid of Josh Freese, and
Right.
my line to somebody was, I hope the layman understands just what this business is really all about, because it's not this nice, peaceful, let's everybody hug each other. There's bad people in the business, and there's people that, you hear the line, oh, it's just business, it's just business. Have you guys run into any of that in your travels?
Not specifically,
No.
no, but I think that's part of the business aspect of it is people have to make tough decisions and public perception of that is really difficult to deal with.
I always have a saying with people, like, oh, it's business. It's not personal, it's just business. And it's like, that's a way for you to justify the fact that you're probably going to screw me over. So just tell me you don't want to deal with me and I'm fine with it. Because think about that for a second. Stacey, I want to promote your band, but I can't. It's not personal. It's just, but how does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds like a line.
Right? And so it's basically, I want you to understand I'm going to let you down, and not, but hey, still like me. It's just, you know what?
Right.
Just be honest, just be upfront, and just do it that way. That's just the way I see it. That's my own personal opinion. So there you go. So
Sure.
what do you guys have on the go? We're into, what are we now? We're about halfway through the year, if you can believe
Mhm.
that. Um, we're almost to the end of May, so we're getting into the summer. What do you guys have on the go for, the next 4 or 5 months?
Well, anybody who might be listening in the Seattle area, we've got a show coming up this Saturday, the 24th, at a local venue called Tim's Tavern. Looking forward to that. We've got some friends bands on the bill, so it's going to be a hoot. And then we've got some summer shows booked in Eastern Washington, back in a new venue in Seattle called Baba Yaga. That's pretty exciting to play at. And all of this information can be found on our website, which is the www.deathbyoverkill.com.
I'll ask you. Uh, I guess the origin of the name came from where?
Um, So the band in its origin was thrown together as a support act for a friend of ours who was touring,
Okay.
and they didn't have another act from Seattle, so we kind of cobbled together a band of friends, and we were kind of driving around, and my husband, who's also the bassist, is we're having a conversation, and I basically said something to the effect of like, would that be overkill? And he joked that my whole life is overkill. And then it kind of just snowballed into death by overkill.
Was that the silhouette that I saw sleeking out of the shot there before you started?
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Brian sent me a little presser on you guys here. I'd just like to read a little bit of it, and I'd get
Sure.
your. So about Death by Overkill, formed out of Seattle's legendary All-Star Porn Jam annual fundraiser, Death by Overkill features members of beloved local bands including Furniture Girls, the High Steppers, the Adarna. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
The Slants, and Voyager One. The band is no stranger to the stage, having played with icons like Heart, the Sonics, uh, Mary Lee Rush. Their approach to music is simple: forget the rules and let the good times roll. I love that because I'm getting a visual without even hearing you guys. And I read that before I listened to the tunes, and I'm like, yep, I totally get it.
Right.
Um, Tell me about this porn all star jam. This because
The
jams,
All-Star Porn Jam.
yeah,
So they've, in recent years, gosh, I think they're going on 20 plus years now of doing this charity event. And we kind of like to call it the, rock and roll Christmas party. It's a lot of Seattle local musicians. Started off mostly in the metal community, but it's kind of broadened since then. And it's basically the concept was you put together, your porn fantasy team. I think about it like fantasy football or something where
okay.
you're picking your players that you've always wanted to play with and making a band for one night and doing some covers, and all of the proceeds are for charity locally.
Okay, cool. That's cool. No hurt feelings or anything like that if somebody doesn't get picked.
I mean, I can't say that hasn't happened, but I don't know. Not in my
Well, because
circle.
you guys have a hockey team out there now, and up here in Canada, we used to throw the sticks in the middle and pick. And there was always one guy at the end that didn't. He got picked last and didn't get a lot of ice time or whatever. So that's what you got to ask, right? Um, I guess last question. Um, you mentioned a couple of things, but or a couple places, but where do I send my viewers, my listeners, the people that tune into the curtain call segment to find out about you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Place number one is our website. Again, www.deathbyoverkill.com. And that has links to all of like our YouTube channel. If you want to see videos of us, there's videos there on the website. And then you can find all the various streaming platforms for there if you want to listen to stuff streaming or purchase a vinyl. That would be great.
Well, I love that you're doing vinyl. Stacy, fantastic to meet you. And I'll keep in touch with you guys. I want to see how you make go through it the summer. A lot of the curtain call kids, I'm starting to call them, are having some good success. So I wish nothing but the best for you guys as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
We're back after this.